In this video, we're going to compare the snap lock metal roofing to the 138T standing seam. Stick around and we'll show you what it's all about. What's up guys, my name's Aaron. We're here in our shop and tonight we're talking about snap lock metal roofing versus the 138T. So the snap lock metal roofing is a standing seam panel that probably a lot of you guys have heard of. And if you haven't, I've got some other videos that'll help you learn about the snap lock. But the 138T, which we're going to compare it to, you probably haven't heard of, and that's what we're going to show you a little bit about tonight. Now before we just jump right in, I kind of want to set the mood and give you a good frame of a way to think about this metal roofing. So if we go back down to like a barn metal or an exposed fastener, a screw down metal, and we classified that as a good option, and then you move to a snap lock metal roofing, well that would be a better option, or in my opinion it would be a much better option. And then if you wanted to classify the 138T as a good, better, best scenario, the 138T would be the best option. So that's how these panels fall out in the hierarchy. So barn metal exposed fastener, that's a good option. Snap lock, a much better option. The 138T, the best option. And in this video, we're going to show you why that is. So with the snap lock metal roofing and the 138T, we're going to start off the comparison by talking about the things that they are similar on. So there is a lot of similarities between the two panels. They're both standing seam panels. They're both 24 gauge. They both have kynar paint. They both are hidden fasteners. So both of these panels use a clip system to install, right? And both of these panels are a great option. So when I say better and best, you can't go wrong with either one. They're both good, but there's several items that you get with the 138T that you don't get with the snap lock, and that's what we're going to talk about. All right, guys. So here's a snap lock, and I guess the first thing that I want to show you about this snap lock panel is that this is a traditional standing seam in that it has a male leg and a female leg, and the way that this metal is going to install is that the next panel with the female leg is going to install over top of this male leg, and it's going to install either left to right or right to left, but they have to install together, male on female. The difference between that and the 138T is, what you'll notice with the 138T is this is a neutral leg, so both legs of the 138T are identical, which means each panel is independent of itself. So the way that these panels are gonna connect together is via a seam cap, and I've got a seam cap cut in a different color metal so that you can see these two panels are gonna two of these are gonna butt together, and the seam cap's gonna drop on top, and that's how these panels are gonna be hooked together. So why does that matter, and what does that get you? Well, what that gets you is repairability. In the snap lock metal, as I said, the metal hooks onto itself as it installs, whereas in the 138T, each panel is on its own. So you have the ability to pull an individual panel, make a repair, even replace that panel with the 138T, whereas you don't have that with other traditional standing seams and the snap lock. You would have to go back to the place where the roof started, take all the panels off, make a repair, and then put all the panels back on. You just don't have to do that with the 138T, so that's one big advantage. So besides repairability with the 138T that you don't get with the snap lock, you're also going to get a flashing detail called the transverse panel detail with the 138T that you're not going to get with the snap lock. Now this flashing detail, we've done an entire video just on this detail, but I'll give you just a brief synopsis of it. It's basically the best flashing detail that I've seen with standing seam, and it's easy to do. It works behind chimneys, skylights, or HVAC units, and it is a completely watertight way to flash, because flashings matter. When metal roofings, when they leak, they tend to leak around things. They tend to leak around flashings. So with the 138T, you're going to get the best flashing detail, in my opinion, on the market, called the transverse panel. And if you want to learn more about that, check out the video that we have just on the transverse panel. But that's a special, unique detail with the 138T that you don't get with the snap lock. All right, so we've talked about repairability, we've talked about the transverse panel detail, which you need to check out in the other video, and now we're on to the idea of slope. So the snap lock metal needs to be installed on 312 or above because it's a snap lock. The seams are made by snapping the male and the female together, but it's not a waterproof seam. So it needs pitch or fall of the roof to make that seam stay watertight, or to not leak, I should say. The 138T is not a snap lock seam, it's a mechanical seam. So this seam cap that fits on top of these two panels and joins them together is gonna get mechanically seamed together, which means the sides of this seam cap are gonna get folded in, and in the seam cap, there's adhesive. So the adhesive is gonna get squeezed on to the top, and that allows the 138T to go 312 and below. So in scenarios where there's parts of a structure or the entire structure in a 3 or below, the snap lock is not a good option. Going to a mechanically seamed panel like the 138T is gonna be where you're gonna keep your structure dry long term. All right, another great advantage of going with a mechanically seamed panel is on deflection. Now, deflection is sag or a bow in the roof. So a lot of jobs will have bows or sags in the roof. Well, how much sag is allowable for a snap lock? Usually they say more than a 1/4 inch deflection is not recommended. But in a lot of historic areas where they want standing seam and the houses are old, there is sag and there is deflection. And we just find that a mechanically seamed panel, the sag doesn't bother it as much, whereas the snap lock is depending on the pressure and the roof being fairly flat to keep the lock together. We notice on jobs that have higher levels of deflection or a bigger bow or sag in the rafters of the roof, that the snap lock just doesn't do as well. So if you've got an old structure and you've got some dips and some bumps and it's a house built in the early 1900s, late 1800s, you might want to think about the 138T over a snap lock. All right, guys, so we talked about the fact that the 138T is repairable when the snap lock is not. We've talked about the slope factor, so snap lock needs to be 312 or above, and the 138T can go 312 and below. We've talked about the deflection, how the mechanical seam absorbs sag or deflection in the older homes a lot better than a snap lock. And we've also talked about the trim. So I encourage you, if you have a house with a lot of skylights or chimneys or have had problems behind those features, maybe an HVAC unit or a curb on your structure, could be a restaurant, could be a building, could be a commercial, the 138T is a great solution. I encourage you to watch the video that we have on the transverse panel. That flashing detail is amazing and it does not leak. So how much should you expect to pay more for the 138T or the snap lock? So we've already told you that the snap lock was a better option than the exposed fastener, and we said that the 138T was the best option. Well, how much do you pay for the best? Okay, well, so let's hammer out the details. What we find in our company when we quote, because we often quote both panels, is that the 138T installed from our company will run somewhere between 15 and 20% more than a snap lock roof. So for some consumers, the value of proposition that we've just mentioned, like with the repairability, the trims, the slope, the deflection, that is enough to compensate for the added cost of the 138T. For others, they say, nope, you know what, the snap lock's fine, we're never gonna remodel the house, things are gonna be the same, we don't need that, the snap lock's fine. And they're both good options. I just wanna just say that if you choose a snap lock, that's a great option too, but there are just certain things that the snap lock won't do that the 138T does. And in my opinion, it's worth the 20%, and I think to have the repairability is an amazing thing, but if it's not in the budget, it's not in the budget. So guys, I hope you watch the other videos that we have on the 138T and on the snap lock. Hope you make a good educated decision on which metal roofing panel is right for your next project. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.